Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Former Steelers receiver Diontae Johnson was excused from team activities ahead of Week 16, a mutual agreement that the Ravens announced on Monday. The decision comes after Baltimore suspended Johnson for its Week 15 contest against the New York Giants, a 35-14 win, after he quit on the team 2 weeks prior. Against the Philadelphia Eagles, preceding the Week 14 bye, Johnson refused to enter the game when called upon. That isn't going to fly, and it marks a critical point in his Ravens tenure. The San Francisco 49ers recently suspended linebacker Devondre Campbell for 3 games due to a similar offense on Thursday Night Football, and virtually every outward-facing player condemned him for his actions. San Francisco is in free fall with decreasing stakes. Baltimore might win the Super Bowl. As such, it seems likely that Johnson has already played his final down with the Ravens, potentially ending one of the worst contract years in recent memory and representing the worst-case outcome for an admittedly small-scale trade, flipping a 5th-round pick for Johnson and a 6th-round selection. In 7 games with the Carolina Panthers, Johnson logged 58 targets for 30 catches, 357 yards, and 3 scores. Appearing in 4 games for Baltimore, he's found just 5 targets, 1 catch, and 6 yards. The move has been nothing short of useless for the Ravens, giving additional credence to the idea that the Steelers were right to flip him for cornerback Donte Jackson, despite struggles with injuries and consistency on the boundary. Once again, Pittsburgh was right, and once again, the Steelers won't have to worry about their former receiver coming back to bite them. For overreactions from the Steelers' 27-13 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. Takeaways, overreactions, and random musings from the Steelers' ugly loss. A battle between 2 of the NFL's best teams ended as an ugly slog for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who lost 27-13 on the road. As always, there are plenty of takeaways to be had. In many ways, the Steelers' Sunday loss feels eerily similar to the team's Week 12 loss to the Cleveland Browns. The general consensus heading into the game was that the Steelers would probably lose, and they did, but the reaction is once again outrage. Any given Sunday always holds true, sure, but didn't we all see this coming? Without George Pickens and Deshaun Elliott, the Steelers were down their best offensive player and one of their best defenders. They were playing in a historically tough road environment against a talented 11-2 team. It was a bit uglier than expected, with not one first down in the opening quarter and a brutal defensive letdown in the 4th. But at the end of the day, the Steelers were an uncharacteristic Najee Harris fumble away from making a game of it in the second half. That isn't to downplay the bad. The Steelers were thoroughly outplayed and outcoached on Sunday, there's no doubt about it. But as long as T.J. Watt's injury isn't serious and Pickens returns to the lineup soon, there's no reason to throw the towel for the 2024 season. What did Sunday teach us that we didn't know already? The defense has some issues. The offense has some issues. It's going to be hard to overcome those issues on the road against an elite opponent and without George Pickens. At the end of the day, that's the same Steelers we've watched all year, and the same group that has already beaten 4 teams that are currently in the playoff picture. Every team in the AFC, with the exception of the Buffalo Bills, looks like a reasonably winnable matchup for Pittsburgh. Maybe some of the Super Bowl contender hype has gotten out of control late this season, depending on your definition of contender, of course, but this loss should not be causing the consternation it currently is. And let's be honest, most of it will dissipate if the Steelers win the AFC North next week against the Baltimore Ravens. Critique the Steelers where it's deserved. But rants about the sky falling don't really fit on a weekend where Pittsburgh clinched a playoff spot. 2. T.J. Watt's Defensive Player of the Year case gets a boost. I know. Talking about individual accolades following a loss is going to rub some the wrong way. But this was a narrative prior to the game, and what seemed to be paying attention, logging 7 tackles, 2 sacks, a tackle for loss, and a forced fumble against one of the NFL's best offensive lines on Sunday. It's the type of stat sheet-filling performance from what that we haven't seen as often as usual this season. He still had plenty. He's now within 1 sack of the league lead, and added to his NFL best tackle for loss and forced fumble numbers. Wood is still a ways away from losing his game-wrecking ability, even if his down sack numbers have some worried. It's been another great season from number 90. Let's hope the ankle heals up. 3. Coaching was the Steelers' biggest problem. Execution was an issue against Philadelphia. Offensive line struggles, defensive backs losing one-on-ones, missed tackles, and various other penalties and mistakes. This was a true team loss if I've ever seen one. But a lot of the Steelers' problems on Sunday stemmed from poor coaching. Mike Tomlin called 2 painfully late timeouts and opted to punt down 2 scores in the fourth quarter on a midfield 4th and 7. Tom Brady, Steelers will learn from Eagles' loss and be much better against Ravens. A lot of the Pittsburgh Steelers' weaknesses were on full display Sunday in their 27-13 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. Their run game was non-existent, their pass game was a non-factor without the deep ball, and their defense had issues getting off the field. The Eagles were the more physical team, which doesn't often happen to the Steelers. That may cause public opinion to turn toward the Baltimore Ravens for this week's game. However, former NFL quarterback Tom Brady believes the Steelers will be just fine. If they go to Baltimore, which they are, they're gonna have to play a clean game, Brady said via NFL on Fox on YouTube. Limit penalties, limit turnovers. The thing they did last time they played Baltimore, they possessed the football, 36-minute time of possession. It's gotta be a similar formula. I think they're gonna learn from what happened Sunday and be much better next week. Brady is preaching patience, and that's probably the correct move. The Steelers did look outmatched against the Eagles, but they had a similarly disappointing game against the Cleveland Browns almost a month ago. The following week, they eliminated many of the issues that plagued them in that game, beating the Cincinnati Bengals in a shootout. This week's game might give them a little more difficulty. For starters, it's in Baltimore. The Steelers have won their last 4 games in Baltimore, but the Ravens are rolling right now. They just annihilated the New York Giants, with Lamar Jackson throwing more touchdown passes, 5, than incompletions, 4. Also, the Steelers look like the walking wounded at the moment. George Pickens has been dealing with a hamstring injury, and he could miss this week's game. TJ Watt could play this week after rolling his ankle against the Eagles, but nothing is certain. Deshaun Elliott, Dante Jackson, and Larry Ogunjobi are also nursing injuries of their own. Currently, health is not on the Steelers' side. Brady played against the Steelers a number of times throughout his illustrious career, so maybe he's got a better feel for how they'll respond to the Eagles' loss. Brady will be on the call again for that game, so he'll have a front-row seat to see if they can prove him right. The bottom line is that the Steelers have been one of the best teams in the NFL this year. They've had some unfortunate losses, but no team has been perfect. Even if they lose to Baltimore, they'll still have a chance to win the AFC North. Their season is far from over. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Tom Brady? Leave your opinion in the comments.